Welcome to Mind Care is Self-Care. Today, we are confronting one of the most socially rewarded but psychologically expensive identities a person can carry, being the problem solver, the dependable one, the one everyone calls when their life catches fire, the one who always has advice, always has a plan, always knows what to do, always remains calm, always shows up, always rescues, always manages, always stabilizes. From the outside, it looks admirable. People praise you for it. They call you strong, mature, reliable, wise, grounded, necessary. But what if the very identity you have spent years perfecting is the exact identity preventing your emotional evolution? What if your compulsive need to fix everything is not a strength, but a sophisticated avoidance strategy? That question can feel offensive at first, especially if being helpful has become one of the core ways you understand yourself. You may even hear resistance rising immediately, but I genuinely care about people. I just like helping. That's who I am, and perhaps all of that is true. But beneath genuine care can exist something far more complicated. Fear. Fear of helplessness, fear of stillness, fear of irrelevance. Fear of being emotionally exposed, fear of confronting your own unmet needs. For many people, fixing others is not just kindness. It is camouflage. It is one of the most socially acceptable ways to avoid yourself. Think about it carefully. When your attention is constantly occupied by someone else's crisis, what happens to your own internal world? It becomes background noise. Your unresolved grief can wait because your friend needs advice. Your anxiety can wait because your sibling is overwhelmed. Your exhaustion can wait because your partner needs support. Your loneliness can wait because your team at work needs leadership. Your emotional needs are postponed indefinitely because someone else always seems to need you more urgently than you need yourself. And the problem is, this feels noble. That is why it is so difficult to detect. Unlike more obvious avoidance behaviors, helping people looks healthy. It gets rewarded. It earns praise. It gives you identity. It gives you social value. It gives you belonging. It even gives you a dopamine hit. Yes, there's a biochemical component to this. Every time you solve a problem, your brain rewards you. Dopamine reinforces confidence. It tells you this matters, this feels good, do it again. The more people praise your usefulness, the stronger that reward loop becomes. Over time, being needed becomes emotionally addictive. You stop merely helping people, you begin depending on their need for your sense of self. That is when helping turns into compulsion. Now your emotional stability depends on being useful, and that is dangerous. Because if your identity is built around solving problems, then peace becomes uncomfortable. Stillness feels suspicious. An ordinary day feels empty. A quiet room feels threatening. Nothing being wrong feels strangely wrong. Without a crisis to manage, who are you? Without someone needing you, what remains? Without being useful, do you still feel valuable? That question terrifies many people, so they unconsciously create chaos to avoid answering it. Sometimes this looks obvious. Choosing emotionally volatile relationships where someone always needs rescuing. Sometimes it is subtle. Constantly volunteering for extra responsibilities, overfunctioning at work, offering advice no one asked for, inserting yourself into other people's emotional problems. Feeling restless when things are calm, scanning for what needs fixing before anyone even asks. This is not maturity. This is emotional hypervigilance disguised as helpfulness. Many problem solvers learn this early. Perhaps you grew up in a home where emotional safety depended on your awareness. Maybe you became the peacemaker between adults. Maybe you learned to anticipate moods, reduce tension, mediate conflict, care for younger siblings, emotionally parent your parents, or become the mature one far too early. Children in these environments often become experts at external regulation. They learn to stabilize others. but they rarely learn how to sit with themselves. Their emotional development gets interrupted. Instead of learning, "What do I feel?" they learn, "What does everyone else need?" Instead of asking, "What do I want?" they ask, "How do I keep the peace?" Instead of discovering their own identity, they become skilled at emotional labor. That survival strategy often follows them into adulthood. And because it worked once, it feels natural. But what protected you then may now be limiting you. When your emotional energy is permanently directed outward, your internal world becomes underdeveloped. This is why many lifelong helpers secretly feel emotionally young. They may be incredibly competent in life. Successful careers, strong reputations, healthy finances, reliable routines. People admire them, yet internally they may feel strangely disconnected from themselves. They do not know what they actually enjoy. They struggle to identify their own needs. They feel guilty resting. They feel anxious receiving care. They feel uncomfortable being vulnerable. They do not know how to ask for help. Their own sadness feels unfamiliar. Their own anger feels inaccessible. Their own desires feel vague. They have mastered adulthood while bypassing emotional intimacy with themselves. That is the hidden cost of being the fixer. You become fluent in everyone else's emotional language while forgetting your own. Eventually, burnout arrives. Not dramatic burnout, not always collapse. Sometimes it looks like irritation, resentment, fatigue, emotional numbness, a sudden desire to withdraw, feeling touched out by everyone's needs, a growing bitterness toward people you love, a fantasy of disappearing, a sense that your life feels crowded, but your soul feels empty. This is often the first sign that your helper identity is no longer sustainable. But even then, many problem solvers misread the message. They think they need a vacation, more boundaries, better time management. And yes, those things may help. But often the deeper issue is not exhaustion, it is identity. You are tired because your worth has become entangled with your usefulness. And no amount of rest repairs an identity built on overfunctioning. At some point, emotional evolution requires a painful shift. You must stop being useful long enough to become honest. That sounds simple. It is not. Because when you stop solving everyone else's problems, silence arrives. And silence is where your own unmet needs become audible. That is the discomfort many helpers avoid. When the noise of other people's chaos fades, you begin hearing your own loneliness, your own grief, your own fears, your own neglected dreams, your own anger, your own exhaustion, your own sadness. The emotions you have postponed begin demanding attention, and suddenly helping others no longer feels noble. It feels like what it often was, distraction. This is the moment emotional evolution begins, not when you help better, when you stop hiding behind helping. This requires learning a new skill, tolerating unresolved discomfort. Most problem solvers cannot tolerate discomfort. The moment tension appears, they move to resolve it. Someone is upset, fix it. Someone is struggling, fix it. Someone is disappointed, fix it. Someone is confused, fix it. This reflex is automatic. But growth requires learning to pause, to witness, to let discomfort exist without immediately intervening. That is emotional maturity, not compulsive action, conscious restraint. Can someone in your life struggle without you rushing to rescue them? Can someone misunderstand you without you over-explaining? Can someone feel disappointed without you absorbing responsibility? Can a problem remain unsolved without you feeling guilty? Can silence exist without you filling it? These are revolutionary practices for the lifelong fixer, because they teach your nervous system something new. I do not have to solve to be safe. That changes everything. Boundaries begin to feel less cruel. You realize saying no is not rejection, it is self-respect. You realize allowing others to solve their own problems is not abandonment, it is trust. You realize rescuing can sometimes rob people of growth. You realize that constantly intervening can actually maintain dependency. You realize that helping is healthiest when it is chosen, not compulsive. This is where the hero complex begins to loosen. And yes, there is often grief here, because you may notice how many relationships were built around your usefulness. Some people may resist your change. They may accuse you of becoming distant, less caring, more selfish, different. And they will be correct. You are becoming different. You are becoming unavailable for emotional overuse. You are becoming unavailable for one-sided dynamics. You are becoming unavailable for identities that require your self-erasure. That is healthy. Not everyone will like it. But your healing does not require unanimous approval. As you step back from compulsive helping, something beautiful begins happening. You start noticing yourself. Your own preferences become clearer. Your body becomes easier to hear. Your exhaustion becomes easier to respect. Your joy becomes easier to prioritize. Your emotions become less foreign. You begin asking better questions. What do I need right now? What am I feeling beneath this urge to help? Am I offering support or avoiding myself? Is this compassion or compulsion? Do they need my help or do I need to feel needed? These questions create self-awareness. Self-awareness creates freedom. Freedom creates authenticity. And authenticity creates emotional evolution. Eventually, the strongest shift occurs. You move from fixer to observer. You stop believing every discomfort is your assignment. You stop taking emotional ownership of other adults. You stop confusing love with labor. You stop measuring your value by how much you can carry. You begin trusting others to carry themselves. You begin trusting yourself to survive being misunderstood. And slowly, a more grounded identity emerges. Not the hero, not the rescuer, not the reliable one, just you, a human being. Allowed to be complicated, allowed to be tired, allowed to receive, allowed to need, allowed to be unfinished, allowed to heal. That is where real maturity lives, not in being needed and being whole. And wholeness is quieter than heroism. It does not demand applause, it does not require constant utility, it does not chase validation through usefulness. It simply rests in truth. You are not here to spend your life managing everyone else's emotional weather. You are here to know yourself, to care for yourself, to become emotionally honest, to develop inner stability that is not dependent on external usefulness, to evolve. So today, pause before solving, pause before rescuing, pause before advising, pause before intervening, and ask, what am I avoiding in myself? What would happen if I let this remain unsolved? What feeling am I trying not to feel? Sit there. That is where your next stage begins. Not in doing more. In becoming still enough to hear your own soul. And maybe, for the first time, choosing to help yourself with the same tenderness you have always reserved for everyone else. Because your healing matters too. Your emotions matter too. Your life deserves your attention too. And your evolution cannot happen while you are permanently distracted by everyone else's emergencies. Come home to yourself. Slowly. Honestly. Patiently. That is not selfish. That is self-respect. That is emotional adulthood. That is healing. This is Mind Care as Self-Care, where healing becomes a daily practice. Protect your peace, honor your emotions, and remember, the moment you stop making yourself useful to everyone else is often the moment you finally become available to yourself.